Oh, hello there. I didn't see you come in. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm editor of IGN PlayStation. I'm joined by a ragtag group of folks here today.
We're ragtag,
Yeah,
are we?
We're a folky group.
Yeah, folky group.
Some folk heroes from IGN.
I'm of course joined by someone I'm in a million videos with every day.
Me.
Greg Miller.
No,
Greg Miller,
sorry.
he's executive editor of IGN PlayStation. Of course, you know him. But also the illustrious Nintendo team, the IGN Nintendo team, Rich George and
Hello,
Audrey
everyone.
Drake. They're very busy, so I appreciate you guys coming here to join us for a conversation about PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale and Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and just, I guess, the series generally. So, guys, let's kick it off right away. Greg, I'm going to throw it to you.
Okay.
What do you think about this PlayStation All-Stars game?
PlayStation All-Stars
Yeah.
Battle Royale.
Yeah.
Colin, we've talked a lot about it. We've played a lot of it. The thing that strikes me about All-Stars is that I like it more the more I play, which I think is going to work against it in a lot of ways. I think a lot of people are going to, you look at it, and this is what we've talked about since you saw it first and you came back and did the preview for IGN. So ever since you see this game, the first time you see it, you're like, oh man, this is clearly Smash Brothers. They are ripping off Smash Brothers. It looks so much like Smash Brothers. And then you play it and you're like, oh my god, this is distinctly not Smash Brothers. And I think a lot of people are going to pick it up on Tuesday and not know what to do with that. They're going to pick it up and not know why is it not this, why is it not working in this way, and it's going to turn people off. But it's all about finding a character you like and then sticking it out with that character and learning how to be better and better and better with them. Because it's one of those things, the more I play, the more I want to play, and I want to keep going back and getting better and better and better.
Richard, do you agree? I mean, we got copies of the game, and obviously Greg and I had first dibs, as we often do. High five.
In your face.
But I want to make sure that you two had the game as well, so
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can kind of compare and contrast these two games, because it seems like an unabashed Smash Brothers clone.
Sure.
How do you
Yeah.
feel about that?
I mean, I think the interesting thing is that, kind of like Greg was saying, the more you play it, the more you realize how different it is from Smash Brothers. I think actually the greatest sort of weakness of the game is that it visually looks very much like Smash Brothers. So when you look at it, you see little dudes, and you got multi-tiered stages, you're like, Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
But it's actually kind of different, and I feel like if they had made it not look so much like that and kind of worked to change that presentation of it, that people wouldn't be making those comparisons, and so when they get it on Tuesday, they're not going to be like, why isn't this, or it's going to be interesting to see who thinks it is very much like Smash Brothers and who thinks it's very different. It's kind of like the glass half full, half empty thing. I picked Big Daddy the second I sort of started up because he was sort of, I guess, the most recognizable to me because I just finished BioShock.
Oh, you know Evil
months
Cole.
ago. Yeah, exactly. But like, you're kind of right in that like I picked him and I just kept playing with him, and the more I played just with him, the more I was sort of enjoying myself and sort of learning the different moves. I mean, there's more complexity to it. You're sort of I forget what they're called, but the smash attack. There's three tiers to that. You have 3 attack buttons, and there's a lot of familiarity in there for Smash Brothers players, but it is fundamentally a very different game. You're not going for the same strategy. The same rules don't really apply. It's a much more aggressive game, I think. It focuses more on getting people together to kind of beat on each other versus this sort of like positional sort of movement of everybody for Smash Brothers and Brawl in particular, where you're trying to ring people out in Smash Brothers. So where you are on the stage is very important. Whereas with All Stars, you're just trying to, so.
Cool. Audrey, how do you think that the two compare? I mean, we have, I guess, two different systems in which you have a Smash. You're literally killing, I guess, not literally, but you're literally killing the digital version of your
literally
characters
killed Mario.
in Smash Brothers. But in All Stars, you're building up meter in which to
building up the
execute these
meter,
attacks.
yeah, yeah.
So how do you feel about that?
That's interesting. I mean, if the first time you play it, just like you said, Greg, it sort of takes you off guard because you're expecting it to be just exactly like Smash Bros. But then it has these huge differences. Filling up the super meter, I mean, I did get used to it the more that I played, but at first it's just so different from Smash Bros. For me, I think it's cool and it's a great mechanic that sets this game apart, but it lacks the immediacy of Smash Bros. For me, where like every hit, every punch just sort of ups your percentages and it changes the possible outcome of the game, and then it has these crazy bounce around mechanics that just escalate as your percentages go up. So it's a very different beast, but those things I feel, sort of act as its weakness, since it's so very similar to Smash, but then it has these fundamental differences. So that's a big...
What's interesting about it to me is that Brawl, the smash attack, the big attack, is not something you necessarily are focusing on, and a lot of people turn it off because it's the bouncy ball around, you're trying to ping it around, and I know she and a lot of the guys that play here turn all the items and the smash ball off, whereas in All-Stars, that is what you are trying to do. You need your meter, you need your special attacks, and you need to be able to eliminate people with them. And Brawl it's just something very different.
Yeah.
You're not trying necessarily, and a lot of people don't play with the the super or smash attack.
It's just like this. It's why I turn the smash attacks off in Brawl. Is it can be a little unbalanced. Like I was playing with Drake. I was switching between him and Parappa, and his first special attack is useless. How are you supposed to hit with that?
Oh, when he's pushing the thing
exactly.
over, like, oh, this is
So
dumb Drake.
that took a little getting used to.
Yeah, I think the risk reward in All-Stars, I think, is what its most poignant feature is, just in the sense that Greg and I really like to play one-on-one, and that's not something you've seen a lot of, but if we set the meter to 3 kills, first to 3 kills or whatever, the game can last 15 or 20 minutes, and it becomes like very tactical and very, like supers, if you miss that super, you're screwed, and you have to build it back up again. I really enjoy that.
I love that. That's my favorite part about it. And for me, that was really when we started doing that. That was the real eye-opening moment of like how this game is not Smash Brothers. Because Smash Brothers, anyone can come in, sit down, and have a chance at playing. But when you learn how to dodge roll, and you know like what a flashing sweet tooth means, and you know exactly what's going on, that's when the game gets incredibly deep, and you need to start planning and knowing strategies. For me, jumping up and throwing the sweet tooth mine and standing back and having you come to it to bait you, to get underneath you to do my, there's all these little parts where using your super, I think 9 times out of the 10 usually doesn't end up in a kill. You know what I mean? At least in a one-on-one when you're playing technically, it doesn't end up in a kill. So you need to understand how to link those together and how to build your AP and get out there and get to the actual meat of the matter and kill somebody.
One thing that was weird for me, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, is that since almost all of these characters are from like 3D games, it felt like it should have been more of a 3D, like Arena Fighter, like Power Stone from Dreamcast. I don't know if you guys played that. Like I felt like that would have fit more than the 2D brawler style.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? You figure if they go that way, then what does it mean for a character like Parappa when you bring them in and stuff like that? And I think
there are definitely exceptions.
You made a great point in the beginning, of just like, the fact that it does look like so much like Smash is detrimental in a lot of ways, but I think it was the easiest way probably to get people in and get people behind the product, because you figure it's going to have a pretty big install base just based on people thinking it's Smash. And then they get it and hopefully they learn it's not Smash and they're not mad at that.
I think the most important thing about the 2 games is that you look at the range of complexity, and All-Stars is much more like a traditional fighting game in the sense that you are trying to basically kill your opponent. The way you defeat them isn't by knocking out their health, but it's by doing the super attack and eliminating them. Brawl or Melee or any of these other things have a much wider range of complexity. The goal is to just get the guy off the stage and get him off the screen, which I think is fundamentally more easy to appreciate and understand. And like you were saying, like you can just jump in and give it a go. I will say though that Brawl, and more particularly Melee, probably have a lot of complexity and depth sort of under there, and if you want to really learn those and you play with people who have learned those things, then you have the sort of like wave dashing and the dodging and all that sort of stuff. So it's there, but it's interesting to see, I think at least, Brawl in the Smash Brothers series as a whole has this very wide range of complexity, and All-Stars, skews a little more towards the, more complex side. I wouldn't maybe like relate it to something like Street Fighter, but it is more towards that side.
For me, All-Stars is reminiscent of like Dissidia, where you're trying to fill up this meter and something like that. And it's a cool mechanic. Obviously, I'm not saying it's bad, but it's just something like I said, I prefer the immediacy of Smash Bros.
Right. No, that was my big thing when they announced that you could only kill people through specials. I was like, oh, that sucks. Because like it's one of those things when looking at how I play right now as Sweet Tooth and how I play as Link. When I'm playing as Link, I'm relying so hard on my whirl attack with the sword, you know what I mean, and setting people up that way, and then very rarely throwing a bomb, whereas with Sweet Tooth, I feel like I'm going into all these different tricks and trying to link them together like a Street Fighter, where I'm getting to something else.
Yeah.
I saw when I was playing with Big Daddy, I find his level 1 useless to me. I mean, it sort of shoots out the sister, and you're like, well, maybe I get her. But what I found actually, the more I played it, is that level 1 was super useful to me, but only if I got my opponent in the right spot at the right time and sort of that sort of thing, and then timed her sort of like arc in the proper way.
The more you play, the more you learn the characters and you sort of get your idea around all of these new mechanics. Like with Drake, like his first 2 special attacks, I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? But then you sort of figure it out.
And I mean, speaking of those characters, I mean, it's this PlayStation legacy, I guess, that has been kind of disparaged, I guess, since All-Stars was announced, because it really doesn't match up to the Marios and the Links. But at the same time, this cast of characters, there's 20 characters in the game. Drake and Sackboy and Kratos and all these characters are pretty big, and then we have some minor, throwbacks, Sir Dan, Noriko and stuff. How does this cast kind of stand out? Is this a cast that's going to interest anyone that isn't in the PlayStation?
Yeah, I
mean, it's very different.
For me, I mean, this is a personal taste thing. You can't just make a call on it, but I think Smash's roster appeals to more people, obviously, just because it has such a wide range of characters. But I actually really love that there's so much PS1 love on All Stars. Like I love seeing Parappa and Spike from Ape Escape, and like Hayachi from
Yeah.
Tekken. Like, it's great to see all of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, we had my friend Kyle from Missouri came out to visit, and he was over there, and we had an early build of Smash, of Brawl. What's our game?
All-Stars. That's
We had
the
an
one.
early All-Stars thing. We put it in there, and he looked at it, and he knew nobody. And he's a
Yeah.
huge Smash player. Like he grew, but it's because Nintendo is this thing that people have grown up on. You know what I mean?
Exactly,
Mario's
yeah.
synonymous with video games. So
Oh, yeah,
even
yeah.
if you picked up Smash and knew nobody, you would know Mario. You would know Luigi.
Well, Mario's the kind of thing, even people who don't play games, hate games, if you ask them about Mario, they've played it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with my own take on the cast of characters. I mean, obviously I'm a huge PlayStation fan, but I also grew up as a huge Nintendo fan, and I love Nintendo, and I love Smash Brothers. And you know, I think people have kind of overplayed their hand in the sense of like saying like one roster is much better than the other, and what I mean by that is, of course, nothing is going to match up to Link and Mario and Zelda and all these characters, but you know, who do you know better, Nathan Drake or Marth? Who do you know better, Sackboy
Marth.
or
No.
Sackboy or Ness? You know, I mean, this is like there's strengths and weaknesses, I think, in terms of recognizability.
There's some very obscure characters in the Brawl roster.
So I think that, you know,
I mean, a big part of it, I think, is that the PlayStation roster in All Stars is skewing much more for the more recent. You know what I mean? We have two Coles in there.
Yeah.
We have people from games that aren't even out yet. You know, Dante's in there. This version of Raiden from Metal Gear Rising, the BioShock Infinite level. You know what I mean? It's very much a contemporary game of like, hey, you didn't grow up on these characters and you haven't played all these, you know, since SNES and all this other stuff. You're picking up from the PS1, which, you know, in the grand scheme of things, wasn't too far long ago.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, how do you guys feel about the IP mashups in terms of, you know, having two franchises on every stage? The stages are very interactive. You can shut that off, but you know the stages are very.
I love that, by the way, that you can turn off stage hazards. I wish that was.
The stages are very disruptive to the gameplay. I mean, do you guys feel like that kind of sets it apart as well? That kind of gameplay.
Brawl, the most annoying part is the fact that you have a bunch of stages that are just annoyingly interactive.
So basically, if you want to have like a straight brawl, you go to Final Destination.
There's like one or two stages that you really work with. So I do love the idea that you can turn them off. I do like the mashup idea. I mean, there are definitely ideas within All Stars that make sense. I do love the fact that All Stars has more third-party characters. I mean, that was when Brawl sort of opened that door. Everyone was like, well, where's more? You know, where's Mega Man? Everyone was sitting there going, where's Mega Man?
I say that all the time, just generally.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that, you know, just looking at the overall IP, it's well, two things. One, I thought it was really telling that, you know, I just opened up the roster, you know, going into select a character, and immediately the one I wanted to go for was Big Daddy, and that was weird to me because, you know, when I play something like Brawl, it's like, oh, like Mario or Link or, you know, these sorts of things. And I actually don't go and try and select Sonic or Snake, you know, and here I am going like, oh, I'll just go with Big Daddy. I don't know who some of these are, or I only know them so passingly that I'm not necessarily going to want to select them. But the thing about the whole, you know, the entirety of the IP idea is this doesn't entirely work, but I liken it a lot to Marvel and DC. You know, DC is a collection of all these different characters created by all these different companies and that have sort of been aggregated over time. And so you don't necessarily get the same sense of cohesion as you might out of something like Marvel. And I feel like Nintendo sort of likens itself to Marvel, where a few people created the vast majority of these characters in a very short period of time. And for me, Nintendo's IPs fit together a little better in a lot of ways. They just sort of feel like they kind of belong. You know, it's weird because when you put Samus next to Link, there's such different games and there's such different IPs, and yet they kind of feel like they fit. You're kind of like,
the only
oh,
one
that's
who
interesting.
sort of skirts the line is Snake, or it's like you almost don't fit, but whatever, I'll let it pass.
Well, yeah, and I mean the third parties being sort of the exception, obviously, because they're sort of outsiders. But with PlayStation, I felt like a lot of these things, you know, it feels very much like an eclectic, strange grouping of characters, and that's awesome, and it's sort of its own unique feel. Whereas Smash Brothers, you know, it feels like this family thing that you've grown up with for 25, 30 years. So it's just that was one of the things I was sort of noticing as I was playing.
So Audrey, let's wrap this up, I guess, and kind of conclude. You know, does All Stars have a future? Do you think this is a game that's going to pick up? Do you think there'll be another one? Do you think Superbot kind of did something here that's going to?
I guarantee you there will probably be another one. Honestly, just going with my gut, I don't think it'll find the same acclaim that Smash Bros did, just because I think that one has a lot of depth, but it's also very pick up and play, so it sort of has both things going for it. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of good things about this game too, so I think it'll definitely find a following with the PlayStation crowd. Absolutely.
What do you think, Rich? How do you think this game kind of stacks up against Smash Bros? Do you think this game has a future?
Here's the thing: when Smash Brothers first came out in, like, I think it was '99, I thought it was a good game, but I wasn't necessarily like burning for the sequel because it hadn't really made its mark. It hadn't really established itself yet. And if you look at what's in the first Smash Brothers game, it's good, but it's not amazing.
Oh,
And
you're
rough.
freaking crazy. It was awesome.
It was good.
Oh my God, I love Smash Brothers.
Don't get me wrong, it was good, and it was sort of like, oh man, how haven't they done this before?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you were kind of like, I think IGN gave it something like an 8.5 or something like that. It was good, and I think All Stars is
Great.
good.
Right?
Great. Yeah, right. All right. But All Stars is in that same vein to me. It's it's a great game, but I don't think it's hit that like same level where Melee and Brawl really kind of took the Smash Brothers series to. So I would actually like to see a sequel because I would like to see that game be able to stretch its legs, learn from what it did this time, and and maybe pick a direction too. I feel like it's kind of caught between two extremes, and like let's see it pick its direction and define itself, much like Melee did for the Smash Brothers series.
And it'd be great, yeah, just sort of find its own footing and figure out its own identity, maybe even a little further from Smash Bros. Or whatever it decides to do.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to see.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Greg, we're both huge Smash Brothers fans.
Yeah.
And we this game kind of fell into our lap as the PlayStation team, and we've really enjoyed our
Yeah,
time with
yeah.
it. But where do you kind of stand with Smash Brothers and All Stars? How do these games kind of create their own ecosystems, as it were?
I think they do it. I think it happens regardless. I mean, they're platform exclusive, so you don't have to worry about it too much. I think Smash Brothers will continue to speak to the people it speaks to, and then there's the big question of what will happen with PlayStation All Stars. We talk about all the time that this game could do gangbusters or totally just be something that came out and whatever happened. And I don't know what's going to happen. We're lucky enough that we work for IGN and we have a very super passionate PlayStation audience, and they drive this exclusive to the PlayStation 3 to be one of the most popular games on IGN.com, so we know our readers are interested in it. I'm not sure if that means they're going to go buy it. I don't know if that's just because everybody's watching to see, well, what is this thing all about? Yeah. And so it's one of those things that if people get out there and get it, I think they're gonna like it. We're PlayStation fans. We play through it and we like it. And it's one of those things too that I'm not a fighting game fan. You know what I mean? That was my big thing. Is like I love Smash, and then I never touch a Street Fighter. I never do any of this just because they don't feel right to me. But this one feels like something that is something you can jump into and then get better at and learn from it. And I don't have to worry about left down, up, right, all these other combos to try to do fatality or something. Like I can just get in and play and have fun with it. And so I'm excited for it. It's got online that'll be functional. That was my big problem with Smash on Wii, right? Is that bought it, totally loved it.
That was my big problem with Wii.
Yeah, I had this is old school IGN. I had a launch party at my house. I had everybody come over and we played all night long, and that was like the most time I ever put into it. Because then everybody left, and it was me in my house, and I tried to play Craig Harris online, and it was like.
That's the thing about Smash, or just Nintendo games in general, is that there's a large focus on local multiplayer.
Yeah.
And for someone like me, I don't really care for online multiplayer. That works, but for most of the world, 99% of gamers, that just doesn't.
I would much
So
rather have it where we
that.
have people in the house and we're doing it's
Yeah,
nonstop local. But the problem is that just doesn't.
It's hard to get
happen
together.
all the
Yeah, it's not
time.
practical.
Yeah.
I'll say that nothing is going to replace Smash Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
And I agree with Rich that the original Smash Brothers on N64 was fine. It was a fine game. And when I got Melee on GameCube, that was the game I played the most hands down on GameCube, and I loved the GameCube. I played the hell out of the GameCube.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the Wii in the sense that I hadn't spent any more time with any game on Wii but Brawl, and maybe this generation Brawl is probably up there in like the top 3 in terms of time spent. I really love that game. The thing is I can see myself spending a similar amount of time with this game. And they're different. Like I said before we recorded, Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter are not the same game. But you could say Mortal Kombat's a copy of Street Fighter, sure, but they go in different directions. And that's kind of the way I feel about this at the end of the day, that All Stars does its own thing. It's not where it needs to be yet, but it's a great game. But it's never going to beat Smash Brothers at this point. Maybe in the future. Maybe if Superbot gets another crack at it, maybe they can refine it, like you said, go in another direction totally. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Melee was the great test, Like Melee was what moved that series into sort of the blockbuster AAA, this is going to be here from now on. So we'll see if All Stars can do that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, guys, thank you. I know the Nintendo team Wii U is coming out very soon, and you guys have dozens of reviews to do, so I appreciate you taking your time out.
No problem.
What about me?
Greg, it's okay. We're glad you're here.
We gotta go buy the Wonder Book.
Keep it tuned to IGN, of course, for all things PlayStation and Wii U and PlayStation All Stars and Smash Brothers and video games generally. Thank you for joining us. Beyond.
Beyond.
NVC.